Podcast, your place for quick summaries of movies with jaw-dropping twists. Let's dive in. The movie begins in a prison in America, where a group of officers are discussing the arrival of a new prisoner that day. They mention that he will be very dangerous because of his massive and strong physique. Indeed, the prisoner arrives and steps out of the vehicle, and the officers are shocked by his appearance, as he is even larger than they imagined. When one of the officers insults him, the prison warden approaches and tells him to shut up for his own good. We learn that the warden's name is Paul. Paul then speaks to the prisoner, telling him he doesn't want any trouble in the prison. The prisoner reassures him, saying, "Don't worry about me." However, as soon as the prisoner speaks, it becomes clear that he is very gentle, contrary to what everyone thought. They take him to his cell, wanting to get to know him better. But the prisoner feels uneasy because Percy is present. The officers decide to send Percy away so the prisoner can feel more comfortable talking to them. As Percy leaves, he hits another prisoner on the fingers, causing the prisoner to cry out in pain. After Percy leaves, Paul speaks to the prisoner, and we learn his name is John. It becomes evident that John is very gentle, despite his massive appearance. Realizing this, they remove the chains binding him. Paul explains the prison rules to John, but John interrupts and asks if they could leave the prison lights on because he is very afraid of the dark. The officers are surprised by this request, but Paul reassures John, saying they will leave the lights on. John extends his hand to shake Paul's, and they agree. Paul then leaves. Later, the officers gather to discuss John, and it is revealed that he has been sentenced to death. Paul is handed John's file, and as he reads it, we flash back to the events that led to John's imprisonment. A farmer hears screams coming from his house, and upon entering, his wife tells him their daughters are missing, and there's a lot of blood on the ground. The farmer grabs his rifle and, along with the townsfolk, searches for his daughters. They find John sitting and crying, holding the two girls who are covered in blood. The townsfolk attack John, and the farmer beats him. The sheriff arrives, and John tries to explain that he didn't kill the girls and that he was trying to save them. However, the sheriff doesn't believe him and arrests him for murder. Back in the present, Paul is reading John's file when the prison director enters. It is revealed that the director's wife has cancer, and he is deeply saddened because he loves her very much. The director changes the subject, mentioning a call he received from the state governor, who learned that Paul hit Percy during a meeting. It is revealed that Percy is the governor's son and got his position in the prison through connections. The director warns Paul not to treat Percy that way, as it could cause trouble. Paul defends his actions, explaining that Percy broke a prisoner's fingers. The director asks Paul to be patient with Percy, as he will soon leave for a higher-paying job. Paul, however, doubts this, stating that Percy is a sadistic person who enjoys watching executions and would have left a long time ago if he truly wanted to. The next day, Paul and another officer are cleaning the electric chair in preparation for an execution. Another officer, Howell, interrupts them, saying there's an issue. They find a mouse running loose in the prison and decide to catch it, fearing it might carry diseases. The mouse escapes and hides in a cluttered room. The officers remove the clutter, but the mouse is nowhere to be found. Percy, standing in front of a mirror, notices the mouse and tries to shoot it, but it escapes back into the cluttered room. The officers confront Percy about his behavior towards the prisoners, but Percy insists that this is his way and refuses to change. Howell gets angry and grabs Percy violently, but Percy threatens to have his father fire him. Paul intervenes, warning Percy that he won't be protected next time if he continues his behavior. Paul orders Percy to return the clutter to the room and leaves. On the day of the execution, Paul approaches the prisoner and informs him it's time. They prepare the prisoner for execution, wetting the sponge to ensure a quick and humane death. Percy watches the execution with a disturbing sense of satisfaction, revealing his psychopathic tendencies. After the execution, Paul confronts Percy, urging him to accept the new job because no one in the prison wants him there. Percy agrees, but on one condition. He wants to participate in the next execution and personally carry it out. The next day, a prisoner finds the mouse and starts playing with it. He asks the officers if he can keep it. John watches this interaction and seems happy. Percy, however, appears from behind, clearly enjoying what he sees. The following day, Paul meets with the prison director, who informs him about the arrival of a dangerous new prisoner who has killed 3 people. The director, however, is emotional because his wife's condition is worsening. Paul comforts him before returning home. That night, Paul experiences severe pain and collapses in his garden. The next day, the dangerous new prisoner arrives. The officers gather to receive him, but the prisoner pretends to be insane. Percy insults him, and the prisoner is placed in his cell. However, he suddenly attacks the officers, grabbing one of them by the neck. Percy is too scared to act, but Howell intervenes and knocks the prisoner unconscious. They lock him in his cell and leave. Paul, however, collapses in pain as the prisoner had hit him, but John calls him and told him to come, but he was very tired, but he reluctantly approves and goes to him. But he put his hands on the area he complains from, and suddenly a light lights up in a very strange way. And then there is insects that got out from John's mouth. But he asked him, "What did you do?" John replies, "I didn't do anything except help you." He tells him that he is very tired and sleeps. Later, Paul discovers that he is healed and feels no pain at all. The next day, Paul goes to John's lawyer's house. Paul wants to repay the favor John did for him, but at that point we learn that even the lawyer himself believes John is guilty and that he was the one who killed the two girls. We return to the prison, and Paul brings a gift for John to repay him for what he did. The gift is food that John loves very much. John opens it and shares part of it with the prisoner who keeps a pet mouse. At that moment, the dangerous prisoner becomes very angry because he wasn't given a piece. Paul approaches him to calm him down, but the prisoner spits in his face. Then another guard arrives and urinates on him. Paul decides to clean the solitary confinement room to place the prisoner there. They tie him up and put him in solitary confinement. The next day, the prisoner apologizes and they release him. Paul then goes to speak with the prisoner who keeps the mouse and tells him that his time is near. The prisoner asks, "Who will take care of the mouse?" Paul reassures him, saying that he will take care of it. But later, the mouse runs away, and Percy arrives at that moment and steps on the mouse. The prisoner becomes extremely upset because the mouse was his only companion. John then tells them to bring the mouse. They bring it to him, and John starts blowing on it in a strange way. The mouse begins to glow, and strange insects come out of John's mouth. The mouse comes back to life. All the guards are astonished by this and ask John how he did it. John replies, "I don't know." He also tells them that Percy is a very bad person and needs to be punished. Paul goes to Percy and tells him that the mouse is fine and unharmed. Percy doesn't believe him and goes to see for himself. When he returns, Paul and the others grab him and beat him. Paul tells Percy that he will participate in the execution, but only if he agrees to take the new job and leave the prison. Percy agrees. The day of the execution arrives, and it's the turn of the prisoner with the mouse. The prisoner bids farewell to his mouse and gives it to Paul. Paul then gives the mouse to John to keep it with him until the execution is over. Paul promises the prisoner that he will also take care of his mouse. They take the prisoner to the electric chair. Percy is the one conducting the execution. Percy does everything correctly except for wetting the sponge that is placed on the prisoner's head. This is the most important part of the execution to ensure it's quick and painless. Paul realizes that Percy did this intentionally, but it's too late. They turn on the electricity, and the prisoner with the mouse suffers greatly. He remains alive, enduring immense pain. The audience is horrified by the scene and the smell. John feels the prisoner's pain and suffering. Paul grabs Percy and shows him what he has done. Eventually, the prisoner dies, and Percy extinguishes the fire caused by his actions. Percy claims he didn't know the sponge needed to be wet. Paul punches him hard, but another guard intervenes. The prison warden arrives and starts yelling at them. He learns that Percy is responsible for everything. Paul later goes to John and tells him he felt everything his friend went through. He also says that the mouse felt everything because it was held at that moment. The next day, Paul visits the prison warden at his house. We learn that the warden's wife is very ill. Paul is deeply saddened and thinks about how he can help her. He considers bringing John to her to try to heal her. The following day, Paul gathers the guards and shares his idea. The guards are initially very worried about their jobs. Зрение, боязнь смотрителя, который сожжет их, если он найдет, что они увезли заключенного за пределы. In the end, they all agree because they care about their friend and decide to proceed. On the day of the plan, Paul and another guard give a sedative to the dangerous prisoner so he won't hear anything. They mix it into juice, and after drinking it, the prisoner falls asleep. They are concerned Percy might report them, so they tie him up and place him in solitary confinement. Then they take John out. However, the dangerous prisoner doesn't fall asleep and grabs John's hand. At that moment, John sees all the evil things the prisoner has done and realizes how bad he is. Paul removes John's hand, and the prisoner goes back to sleep. They take John to the warden's house. The warden sees them and points a gun at them, but Paul reassures him that they are friends. John gets out of the car, and the warden is very scared. John approaches and calms him down. The warden allows John inside. John absorbs all of the warden's wife's illness into himself, and she is miraculously healed, looking as if she had never been sick. John, however, becomes very weak. The warden and his wife are very grateful, thanking John for saving her life. Paul and the guards take John back to the prison. When they release Percy from solitary confinement, John grabs him and transfers all the illness he absorbed from the warden's wife into Percy. John does this to punish Percy for what he did during the execution. Percy walks toward the dangerous prisoner and shoots him with a gun. The guards stop Percy, and black insects emerge from his mouth, the same ones that John had absorbed earlier. Paul confronts John, asking him why he did this. John explains that when he touched the dangerous prisoner's arm earlier, he realized how evil he was. John then grabs Paul's arm and shows him everything. It turns out the dangerous prisoner was the one who killed the 2 girls for which John was accused. Later, investigators from the police station arrive to question Percy about killing the dangerous prisoner. John asks to watch a movie, and they grant his request. John is very happy watching the film. At that time, all the officers are watching with him and feel very sorry for him. Then comes the day of the execution, and all the officers are very upset. John reassures them, and he walks with him to the execution room. Then John sits on the chair, and they are all crying very hard, trying to hide their tears, because they feel very sorry for John. John asks them not to put the black cloth over his head, because he is very afraid of the dark. Paul agrees, and indeed, Paul places the sponge on John's head. They all cry until in the end, they turn on the device and John is executed. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification button so you never miss an updates. See you in the next video.